One of the most beloved pieces of fiction, beloved by those who wish to escape reality and reimagine a world that isn't as it exists, but how they wish it existed, is Star Trek. Star Trek, the ultimate wet dream of people that think diversity is our strength, a universe where people from different galaxies have made not just a globalist government, but a bureaucracy that controls planets in different galaxies. A universe where healthcare is free, where perfect and free food comes out of a machine and never makes you fat, and where there's no such thing as money. And if that's not enough of a utopia, you can go into a holodeck and live out your wildest fantasies to escape reality even further. In other words, it's what globalists envision the world would be like if we would just give in to their plans. And if a few million or billion have to die to achieve that goal, well, that's okay. It's all for the greater good. Because synthahol never gives you a hangover, and you haven't lived until you've had sex with a green alien. The irony, of course, is the one thing that makes this universe even remotely plausible is something so key to its existence, it's referred to as the Prime Directive.
We have a law known as the Prime Directive.
Wikipedia has this to say about the Prime Directive. The Prime Directive has been used in 5 of the 6 Star Trek-based series. This conceptual law applies particularly to citizens which are below a certain threshold of technological, scientific, or cultural development, preventing starship crews from using their superior technology to impose their own values or ideals on them.
We are all sworn not to interfere with other lives in the galaxy.
So basically what it means is if the Enterprise or anyone from the super centralized government known as the Federation of Planets is to encounter another planet which has not yet evolved on their own enough to handle the responsibilities of participating in their form of government or trusted with their advanced technologies, they are not to interfere. Not even if this means saving lives, sometimes billions of lives. And this isn't just some regulation, this is the Prime Directive.
Starfleet takes the Prime Directive very seriously.
Now, every once in a while, characters will be tempted to break the Prime Directive, or to take in alien life forms they know nothing about, and that almost always ends in disaster. This is a reoccurring theme that shows up again and again and again. After all, it's the Prime Directive. It's the only thing that allows this utopia to exist. With all the starry-eyed diversity and hopeful futurism, even the writers seem to know instinctively that taking in civilizations that had not evolved enough on their own would destroy not only the utopia provided by the Federation, but also the primitive civilizations that weren't ready for the access to the technology that they hadn't earned. The writers knew this because it's true. We see it happening all around us. The advanced civilizations in the West, naively thinking they can just inject their culture into more primitive societies and they'll just magically accept it, leapfrogging over all the necessary evolutionary steps required for an advanced culture to thrive, like trying to install the latest version of Mac OS X on an Apple IIe and just expecting it to work. And of course, it doesn't work. But this doesn't dissuade the globalists. They just keep trying to force their ideals around the world in a mad desperation to live in this futuristic world that exists only in their imaginations. And when it doesn't work, they topple governments, wipe out millions of civilians, and drive hordes of refugees from these primitive societies into their own lands, thinking that maybe if they can't establish these utopias abroad, they can just import these aliens into their societies. Maybe there's something magical about the dirt in their countries. So if they can just bring in these aliens to the societies they've established at home, through sheer force of will, these people will be magically transformed upon setting foot on the magic dirt and be absorbed into a foreign culture. Something that also goes against the Prime Directive, and something the writers also must have instinctively known. And once again, we see that they were right. All you have to do is look around us and see what's happening in advanced Western cultures that have made this mistake. So perhaps Star Trek isn't that far-fetched after all. Maybe it's not the vision of paradise that the globalists cling to while they sacrifice your way of life and the safety of your family. Maybe it's a vision of the paradise lost, when we ignore what even the writers of leftist propaganda instinctively knew. The very key to making an impossible future plausible enough to suspend our disbelief while their fantasy of the future was shoveled into our minds, episode after episode, movie after movie, convention after convention. An impossible world that will only ever exist in the minds of the naive, because we've ignored the only thing that even made it remotely possible: the Prime Directive.
History has proved again and again that whenever mankind interferes with a less developed civilization, no matter how well-intentioned that interference may be, the results are invariably disastrous.